The new year is off to a great start, or is it? Like many of you, I celebrated the new year watching the fireworks displays across the country and around the world. However, from dictators, there was a far different celebration and fireworks display. Vladimir Putin brought in the new year with devastating missile attacks against Kiev and other cities in Ukraine. And at the same time, Hezbollah launched rocket attacks against Israel, attacks sponsored by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Strange as it might sound, this start to 2024 reminded me of a wonderful children's story that some of you may know about. It's called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And that, in a nutshell, is the takeaway of what we're facing across the world as we begin this new year. It's not just a very bad day, but we're facing months and months of grim news from Israel, Gaza, the Middle East, Sudan, Ukraine, and God only knows where else. Look, I strive to look for good in all that I see. And I believe that there is sunshine. But with that kind of a start, I can tell you it's not going to be easy for democracy in 2024. And I'm sorry if that sounds fractious. But this is the reality of the world that we now live in. Welcome to the front lines of freedom. And it's brought to you by Renew Democracy Initiative. Our mission here is straightforward. It is to expose and examine dictators around the world. And at the same time, we want to celebrate and highlight those who fight for democracy every day, and in most cases, at the risk of their own lives. In my line of work, I speak to a lot of people. And there is, in my opinion, no one better to turn to than Garry Kasparov to help guide us through the undergrowth and connect the dots of autocratic activity around the world. Garry is a well-known Russian dissident. He's chairman of the Renew Democracy Initiative. And of course, as you might know, he's a legendary former world chess champion. Your book, Winter is Coming, is a book that warned the world about the rise of Putin. And sadly, very few people listened. What were you seeing at the time?
Actually, I saw it much earlier. My first article warning about Putin dated back January 4th, 2001 in the Wall Street Journal, simply because I listened to Putin. I think we have to listen to dictators when they make their promises. Right. They always lie about what they've done, but very often they're laying down their plans. And Putin was quite frank about his intentions. And back in 2000, when he took over Russian presidency, we already could hear him saying things like, once KGB, always KGB, restoring Soviet anthem for Russia, and gaining more power and feeling more confident. He decided he could go with a big statement like the collapse of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. So he had these ideas all along. What he needed is an opportunity. And tragically, the free world ignored the growing power of Putin and his mafia state. And in 2015, what I said was that his aggression against Ukraine would have not ended in Crimea and Donbass. And Putin's plans went way beyond these occupied territories and even went beyond Ukraine. Right. It was already an existential challenge to the world we used to live in and against the values of the free world that guaranteed us years of prosperity and stability.
Putin is amongst a number of dictators around the world. Is there an obvious pattern of connectedness, or are they acting in isolation?
Dictators don't have friends. But they could have temporary allies. We'll remember Stalin and Hitler, this unholy alliance. It ended up with the war between Nazi Germany and Soviet Union, but temporarily they were the allies that divided Eastern Europe. Putin believes that that's he could be kind of the an honorary chairman of Dictators Inc. Because he has power, he has money, he has nukes, and he already demonstrated that he is not shy of doing some brazen things like attacking neighboring countries, and it made him spiritual leader. Obviously, China is much more powerful today, but Xi Jinping is playing very quiet game. Why Putin is willing to challenge not just neighboring countries, not just United States or NATO, but the entire world order, and that's that puts him in a special category. I would compare him to the spider in the center of this web, and others looking at him, and it's not surprising that Putin's rise and Putin's gaining strength in Russia and internationally helped to solidify dictators in Iran, in Venezuela. Right. And I think it's even the shift of Turkey, from fragile democracy in early years of Erdogan rule to a rigid authoritarian regime. It's also influenced by Putin. You look at Viktor Orban in Hungary. It's kind of a virus. So and looking at Putin's quote unquote success, others also other would-be dictators, authoritarian leaders, they learn from him, and that's why we are seeing now 17 years, according to Freedom House, of decline of democracy and rise of dictators. And it's no longer the Cold War, it's no longer the hybrid war. Right. We already see real wars, real attacks, real bloodshed.
From Ukraine to Gaza, what should we be watching for? What are we missing here?
We're missing connection. I think many people don't recognize it's the same war. And while you can find many differences between Israelis and Ukrainians, look at the enemies: Russia, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah. And of course behind them you have China, you have North Korea, and it's not surprisingly Venezuela now is also adding to this global tension. Maduro is planning to annex the neighboring territory. By the way, using Putin's playbook. It's a referendum on seizing the 60% of Guyana's territory. By the way, with a lot of oil in it. So it's another coincidence. I always say I believe in coincidences, but I also believe in KGB. So we see this spread of this global tension because that's what they need. Dictators cannot survive these days without having an agenda, and their agenda is crisis, because they offer nothing to people they govern. That's why they have to justify their never-ending rule by foreign aggression, by demonstrating their ability to defy the international law and offer some kind of temporary satisfaction for people in these countries.
Bringing that back home, here in America, 2024, America decides. Do you see a return of Trump? And if so, what does that mean for democracy at home and around the world?
It's all interdependent. It's all connected. Any loss of freedom in the remote part of the globe somehow resonates here. And the rise of Trump, it was not accidental, because it was connected to the rise of dictators around the world. So it's time to recognize that we have to look at the battle at River Dnieper, or in the desert Negev in Israel, or defending Taiwan and helping the little Guyana against imperial ambitions of Venezuelan dictator, and preserving American democracy. Again, it's a part of the same game. It's a big picture. And while American democracy is the only hope for the world, but it's also there's reciprocity. American democracy depends on the energy of the freedom fighters from around the world. That's why we believe we can warn Americans about these dangers. Yes, Trump could be disastrous for foundational principles of this great republic, but we should remember that Trump's rise was not accidental, and you should recognize that there is a threat, and also confront this threat with with sufficient vigor and means. Because one of the secrets of Trump's political survival is Biden's weakness.
Right.
So at one point, Biden hopes that he can beat Trump. Trump. But Trump also believes, and the numbers prove it, that the only way to protect him against arguments coming from Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis that Trump cannot win elections is Biden's weakness. So it's time again for us to set aside our personal ambitions and fight for democracy and freedom. And again, recognizing democracy at home here in America, it's the best chance to stop dictators advance everywhere else on the planet.
I want to thank you for spending time with us here on the front lines of freedom, Garry.
I'm going to switch gears a bit and do a little thing that we like to call, what the hell?
Ladies and gentlemen,
right-wing Trump fascists
to the Russians and the Chinese
are controlled by the same exact people.
completely free of charge.
What the hell, man? Dictators need enablers. These are organizations or people who help promote and legitimize them. So meet this, shall we say, interesting youngster, Jackson Hinkle. If you haven't heard of this guy, well, congratulations, and my sincere apologies for bringing him to your attention. So this Jackson Hinkle guy, he's a 24-year-old American, and lately he's gone a bit viral, calling himself, and I'm not kidding you, a MAGA communist. I mean, what the heck is a MAGA communist anyway? I honestly can't figure out why anybody would describe themselves like that. Anyhow, Jackson has decided to make a living boosting dictators and terrorists who have imprisoned, tortured, gassed, bombed, and abused millions of people around the world. I'm talking Putin, Kim, Assad, Hamas, you name them, Jackson boosts them. Now, there are a few things in this dude's story that just don't add up. Starting with the fact that in the last 5 years, he's gone from being a do-gooder environmental activist, Bernie Sanders type of a kid, serving his community, to posting viral Russian propaganda, getting engaged to the former Miss Russia, Anna Lenikova, and claiming to live in luxury high-rises in LA and Miami. And just a couple of months ago, Jackson got the grand tour of Moscow from his lovely fiancée. She took him to see all the landmarks, Red Square, the Bolshoi Theater, and who knows who else he may have met. Look, I'm not spending any more breath on this, because what young Jackson does with his life, that's his business. But what he does to our democracy, that's all our business. So, Jackson, maybe this can be a wake-up call. Instead of photoshopping yourself into pictures with Putin and Xi, and yes, he really does that, maybe you can make some real friends. Take it from someone who has lived under dictatorship, someone who's been in prison. Jackson, what the hell, man? All right, before we close, remember how I told you of how this year sounds like that children's book, Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day? Well, here's a bit of that sunshine that I also said we will highlight. This is Chemi Lhamo. She's a brave young leader who is part of Students for a Free Tibet. Now, Tibet is one of the most oppressed societies on earth, thanks to Xi Jinping and his brutal regime. In October, Chemi and her heroic friends protested Xi Jinping's presence in San Francisco. Now, they were physically beaten by pro-Chinese thugs. Look at this video. This took place on American soil. So, to get under Xi's skin, I'm giving Chemi the mic, and she's gonna put Xi on blast.
Xi, in Tibetan then we say "Duje tamje mitawi," which means all phenomena is impermanent. Be it in calculus or in Buddhism, change is the only constant. So you better be scared. You have the blood of millions of people on your hands. Do you hear that? It's the people rising. I hear the chants, free Tibet, free Hong Kong, free East Turkestan, free China. We're coming. We're coming for you. The people are rising. And with that said, Dictator Xi, your time is up. And that's my blast.
And that's our broadcast this week. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow Renew Democracy Initiative across all social platforms. Thanks for watching and see you next time.